Thank you, Ruth. Before I go through the results of the work we have done, I would like to thank UN CEO Water Mandate for giving Tata the chance to present our work. I would also like to thank SVKM. Although I work for Tata, which is a global group, but I live here, and I would like to thank you for the work you have done in making Parla West a vibrant place to live. And of course, not the least, you also provide employment to my wife. I'd also like to thank BATS over there, IFC. They paid, they picked up half the bill for the consultant services. So thank you, IFC. So what I'm going to do is quickly take you through the results of the work we have done. As we said, we covered 4 companies, 4 of our major companies, and 11 facilities. So that indeed makes this a very interesting study, given the sheer diversity and scale of the facilities. A quick overview of the water footprint assessment methodology. We look at the direct water footprint, which is within the fence, within the plant premises. Then the indirect water footprint, which is the supply chain, the embedded water which comes into your facility. Then we look at the interaction in the local watershed, and then lastly a response strategy. And I think the beauty of this methodology is that it addresses many of the issues which were brought up by the previous panel, especially the panelists from the Columbia Water School here in India. So, WWF, yes, the WWF presentation. I think any company following this methodology in a way addresses the issues addressed there. And a quick overview, which Ruth has given you. It's in terms of blue, green, and gray water footprints. These are the elements of our water footprint study. And lastly, just to bring to your attention, when we talk about water footprint, we are essentially talking of human use of fresh water resources. Because it's fresh water which is in short supply in the world globally, and not seawater. And I'll show you how it affects some of our results. Okay, very quickly, this is the results within the fence. And what we have done is we try to do some kind of a benchmarking, but then I was told by our plant managers that every plant is unique and hence you cannot benchmark us. But we said yes, okay, but there are still similar facilities, so we came up with some comparative numbers or a target number for our facilities to achieve. And this is there on the under the column called the comparative water consumption. We have not called it benchmark. Then what we did is we did this exercise and we calculated the specific water consumption. Rather than provide an absolute number, you could say, okay, 20 million gallons. 20 million gallons, so what? It has to be related to the scale of activity. So we standardized it and we came up with a specific water consumption, and this enables us to compare the numbers with the comparative water consumption figures or the target numbers. As you can see, for Tata Power, this is like a 3 meter cube per unit compared to 1.8. Tata Steel, Tata Motors. Then if you look at, say, Tata Chemicals, soda ash, and here if you see the methodology which focuses on fresh water use, here the specific water consumption is far lower than what would be a target figure, and that's because this plant is located on the seaside in Mithapur, and that's using seawater for many of their most of their processes. And then for urea, and then for SPS. When we did this exercise, we also do what we call as a water abatement curve. If you remember, Bastian in his presentation had a very nasty looking slide at the end of his presentation. This is really that. We came up with the levers which allow you to abate your water consumption. And these are some of the numbers. And as you can see, what we did is we tried to see by implementing these abatement measures, how close you would get to the target numbers. So this has been the exercise within the fence. But as we heard from the previous panelist, it is not only necessary to look at your in-fence consumption, but to look at your consumption relative to other users in the same watershed. And this is a bit different this is where water footprinting becomes different from carbon footprinting. Carbon footprinting is a global exercise. What you emit here in Parla West goes to New York City or wherever. When you look at water, you need to look at the local conditions. Then also, it's not only the geographical nature of the footprinting exercise, it's also important to look at the spatial component of the spatial and the temporal component. There are certain times of the year when an area could be water stretched, or there could be water available in plenty, like say during the monsoons. So these are the differences when you look at water versus say carbon. Okay. Okay. Then, as we said, it's not just important to look at water the within the fence consumption and increase efficiency, but the WFA methodology which we adopted also allows us to look at outside the fence. And here the results are very interesting, given that the nature of the industries are different. So, for example, if you look at Tata Steel is the dominant water user in their watershed, and hence water efficiency plays a key part when you look at water management. If you look at Tata Motors, here most of the embedded water is really from the vendors, and 85% of the footprint is the vendor water footprint, and this is where you need to work with the SME industries, the small and medium scale enterprises who supply the components to Tata Motors. If you look at Tata Chemicals, for example, in Mithapur, they may not be the dominant water user in the watershed, but it is a place which is water starved, and there are plenty of other competing users of water. And then we looked at, say, Tata Power. You have the Trombay plant here, where most of the cooling needs of the power plant are met by seawater, but there is a requirement of fresh water, and that water is pumped from the lakes, which is 60 kilometers away. If you recollect, last year around June, July, when we were getting a bit apprehensive about the delayed rains, there was a government proposal to curtail water supply to Tata Power. So there is a risk there. So what do you do there in case of Trombay plant? It is located on the sea face, so you could look at an option of desalination plant. And a desalination plant only for, say, Tata Power Trombay would not make much economic sense. What you could also do is you could look at the refineries and RCF, the fertilizer producer in the area, maybe build a bigger plant so that you take care of the water security of all the plants in the region. Yeah. So that's a quick overview of the exercise which we did. Next, there are over 100 companies in the Tata Group. So this is only the phase 1, as we call it. In the phase 2, we have the other 12 companies listed here. And in terms of approach, our approach is to build capability within the Tata Group. When we did the first exercise, we created what we call as 30 water champions with the help of Ruth and the team from Water Footprinting Network and Bats from IFC. We had a similar program last month in January, where we have created another 30 water champions. So these champions would be used. So the total, we have a pool of about 60 internal water champions, and they would help us in rolling out this exercise across the remaining 12 companies and across the group. Okay. And we also had a CEO's Water Stewardship program in November. Very important, as we have learned from the previous panelists, to engage the top management. And in November, we had Jason Morrison and Anders from Water Resources Group, and they sensitized our absolute top management. This was a 3-hour meeting attended by Mr. Cyrus Mistry, who was the chairman designate at that point of time, and also the CEOs, about 15 CEOs of our largest companies, and equally good participation from IFC management. Now, just to give you a quick idea of what is the overall Tata approach towards the environmental sustainability. It's very easy. There are so many facets of it that you could easily get lost and not do anything. We just keep talking about it. So what we did is that we thought that we should pick some 3 or 4 themes and go after them. So in 2008, this was around the time when Al Gore won the Nobel Prize, and you had the Inconvenient Truth and Dr. Pachauri. So that was a time when our management wanted to get their arms around carbon and greenhouse gas. So we went hammer and tongs, and we actually did the carbon footprinting and abatement strategy exercise for 50 of our largest companies. Then last year we thought, okay, there are other elements of sustainability. So we took 25 of our top CEOs to the Cambridge University Sustainability Program to understand the ramifications of sustainability. And we had another batch which visited about 2 weeks ago. So we now have about 50 CEOs who have been exposed to this very structured and well-known program. And coming out of that, we have decided to focus on 4 areas: carbon, water, waste, and energy. Carbon we have tackled, water is underway. Energy, to a certain extent was tackled when we looked at carbon. After all, the major sources of emissions of carbon come from use of energy. And then we are going to go after waste and see how we can use maybe the waste from one company could be an input to another of our firms. Okay. So that's a brief summary of what we have done. Thank you for your patient hearing.